Hello, friends. Welcome once again. So, very interesting development and the topic that is are currently being in discussion, and then it comes to the India's action and its reaction into the world politics. This word is always comes into play, always comes into discussion. When it comes to the non-alignment of the India's action, it is always being in discussion that how India's action since the independence and what is action right now and future ahead. This principle actually laid down by the very first Prime Minister of India, Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru. This policy has some positive points, some negative points as well, but set aside for checking up the validity of this, either it's right or wrong. But I am going to tell you the historical point, and my second video I will tell you the positive and negative sides of this policy. Okay, so right now India is in 1947 getting its independence. Okay, so further more what happens I'm going to tell you. So it arose at a time when many countries, particularly of Asia and Africa, had first emerged as independent states. They were deeply they were deeply interested in preserving their own independence and playing an independent role in shaping the world politics and in speeding up the process of destruction of colonialism. Because uh, after 1947, many countries, African countries, was also uh, colonized by the colonial masters. So they also adopted to destroy the colonialism. The world had already been engulfed into the Cold War after the Second World War, with military alliances and a race for weapons. There was many military alliances going on, kind of not NATO, North Atlantic Treaty Organization, NATO called as, and many other regional alliances being formed by the someone by the Western, some by the Russian led. But this kind of military alliances was formed. Race of weapons started for mass destruction because of a direct competition between USSR and Russia and uh, USA, which proposed a threat to their independence as well as the sovereignty of the humanity, survival of humanity, which posed a threat to their independence because of there was military alliances was being formed. There was a fear for these new emerging countries. The world economic order in which they found themselves was based on gross inequality and the exploitation and requirements of their development made fundamental changes in the world economic order is necessary. It was in these conditions that the non-alignment movement emerged and shaped itself. You know the I told you the backing, what led to the circumstances. Because the world was World War after the World War, many alliances was being formed, many economic exploitation was going on. So these countries started uh, uh, getting their independence somewhere and there. So they asserted that I am going to join this camp or that camp. We want to live free so that we can concentrate our economic development and uplift the people from the poverty, not to join any military blocks or become a pawn of the uh, uh, masters. You know. So right now, the Asian Relations Conference. While the non-alignment movement was formally set up in 1961, when the first conference of non-aligned countries was held in Belgrade, Yugoslavia. Its antecedents can be traced back in the early post-war years. The relations of the Indian freedom movement convened the Asian Relations Conference in March 1947 in Delhi. At this conference, Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, who was to become the first Prime Minister of independent India in a few months' time, declared, I'm telling you his words, what he said, in quote, for too long, for too long have we of Asia been prisoners in Western courts and chancelleries. He is saying, Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, that story must now belongs to the past. We proposed to stand on our own legs and to cooperate with all others who are prepared to cooperate with us. We do not intend to be the playthings of others. The countries of Asia can no longer be used as pawns by the others. They are bound to have their own policies in world affairs. Okay, unquote. He warned to the new dangers that threatened the world and said, in quote, the West has driven us into wars and conflicts without number, and even now, the day after a terrible war, there is a talk of further wars in the atomic age that is upon us. In this atomic age, Asia will have to function effectively in the maintenance of peace. Unquote. The Next conference, that is Bandung Conference. By the end of the 1940s, means 1950 approximate, the Western countries' military alliances, NATO, had been set up. Okay, in 1950 approximate, 4950, the NATO, North Atlantic Treaty Organization, was set up, had begun to be formed in Asia. Sorry, in the Western countries military alliance, NATO was formed, and in in has also many alliances also formed in Asia as well. The Cold War was being extended throughout the world, leading to tensions and conflicts. In this context, India, along with China, enunciated the Panchashil, or the five principles of peaceful coexistence. These principles were incorporated in the preamble to an agreement which India and China signed in 1954. They became integral to the non-alignment movement. But in 1962, these Panchashil agreements for peaceful coexistence violated by the Chinese. Mao Zedong, the president of Republic of China, People's Republic of China, CPC, पता नहीं कौन सी party है वो. Hmm. They violated India's sovereignty and territorial integrity, and they attacked India. Many outstanding leaders had emerged in Asia in the early 1950s who wanted to build the unity of Asian and African countries to bring about the end of colonialism and imperialism, and to keep themselves aloof from the Cold War confrontation. In 1955, Ahmad Sukarno of Indonesia hosted a conference of Asian and African countries at Bandung from 17 to 24 April in 1955. The conference was attended by 29 Asian and African countries. Among the outstanding leaders who participated in this conference were Jawaharlal Nehru, Chinese Prime Minister Chow En-lai, and Gamal Ahmad Nasser, then Prime Minister and later President of Egypt. Although the conference was attended by many countries, including Pakistan, Iran, Iraq, Philippines, Turkey, Thailand, and many other members of US-sponsored military alliances. The communique unanimously adopted at this conference clearly stated ideas which expressed some of the fundamental principles of non-alignment. The Van Dunk Conference was a major milestone in the history of non-aligned movement. It was also the biggest conference of the countries of Asia and Africa, representing half of the population of the world. Belgrade Conference. From the mid-1950s, leaders of some non-aligned countries had started holding meetings. Gradually, the idea grew with a conference of all non-aligned countries should be held. 1960 session of the UN General Assembly was a historic one. 17 newly independent countries of Africa were admitted to the United Nations that year, and growing number of new nations recently became free, brought into the significant changes into the United Nations, which became a truly international organization at which, at course of time, almost every country in the world were represented into the United Nations. At this time, when the process of ending colonialism had been accelerated and the United Nations started playing a crucial role in furthering the process, in 14th December 1960, the United Nations adopted the historic Declaration for granting independence to colonial countries and peoples. The United Nations adopted the historic Declaration on granting independence to colonial countries and peoples. This historic session of the United Nations was attended by the leaders of five leading non-aligned countries: Jawaharlal Nehru, Sukarno, Indonesia; Nasser from Egypt; Tito from Yugoslavia; and Nkrumah from Ghana. They took the historic decisions for convening the conference of all non-aligned countries in the following years. The first conference of the head of state on government of the non-aligned movement was held in Belgrade, Yugoslavia, from 1st to 6th September 1961. It was attended by 25 countries as full members. These members were from Afghanistan, Algeria, Burma, now Myanmar, Cambodia, Sri Lanka, Congo, Cuba, Cyprus, Ethiopia, Ghana, Guinea, India, Indonesia, Iraq, Lebanon, Mali, Morocco, Nepal, Saudi Arabia, Somalia, Sudan, Tunisia, United Arab Republic, then comprising Egypt and Syria, Yemen, and Yugoslavia. Algeria had not yet become independent, but the provisional government set up by the FLN was admitted as a member as later SWAO, SWAPO, and PLO were admitted as full members. The conference adopted a declaration which stated that the principles of peaceful coexistence are the only alternative to the Cold War and to a possible general catastrophe, and that lasting peace could be achieved only in a world where the domination of the colonialism, imperialism, neocolonialism in all their manifestation is radically eliminated. The conference also addressed letter after Nikita Khrushchev, Prime Minister of Soviet Union, and Joseph F. Kennedy, the President of United States, Kennedy, and urged them to resume negotiations aimed at reducing risk of war and at ensuring peace. Thank you. Next part in second video. Stay tuned. Thank you.